I've posted it there.
Thank you. Hello. Hello, hello. Sorry about all this kerfuffle. We've started about 20 minutes late for a number of reasons. The first reason is that we have, sadly, we've got no Tom Carlos with us. We were supposed to have Tom Carlos with us today, joining us on the call, but he got into his office. It's very early where he is. Got into his office only to find he was being renovated. So he went home and then discovered that his child he's a new father. His child was crying, and so he decided it's not happening today. So we have the other two guests though, very 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 warmly welcomed. We have Shane Rielly and we have Vito Peleg, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I think a good thing for me to do at the beginning of these live feeds is to ask you guys to just introduce yourselves and what you do and all of that kind of stuff. So as long or as short as you like, we'll start with Shane, if that's all right.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Shane Rielly, and I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I run an agency called Lonely Viking, and we basically at the moment are focusing on brand design and custom integrations and automation. On top of the website development that we've been doing. So yeah, that's us.
That's very cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Is it the same sort of time where you are in South Africa as it is here? Because over here we've got like 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm presuming it's
we're an hour ahead, so it's 3:25.
Okay, so it's not stupid o'clock like it was for Tom.
No,
so,
it's
not. And over to the very far right of the screen we have Vito Peleg. I guess you're in London at the minute, Vito. That's where your office is based. Tell us about you, and if anybody's not heard of you, what it is that you do and have built and are doing.
Sure. So I'm Vito. I'm the founder of WP Feedback. We're basically we have a software that helps WordPress professionals talk to client in a visual way, with the mission of systemizing the entire workflow for WordPress professionals and how they communicate with their customers.
Very nice. Go check it out at wpfeedback.io.com. .co. Sorry. Okay, .co. Go and check it out there. Or here's a thing, right? What you could do. This is a bit of a plug. If you go over to now, where's it gone? Go over to wpbuilds.com. Let's start over here. wpbuilds.com/deals lurking at the top of that page. Look at that. Look at that little fella. There's an ad for WP Feedback, and there's Vito is very kindly giving us a little bit of a coupon code. So if you're in the market for his plugin, there it is. I'm going to do a little tiny bit of promo stuff, if that's all right. I've never done this before, but I thought, why not? Just literally a minute. wpbuilds.com/subscribe. This link over here. I would like to grow my email list, as everybody does. This email list, if you feel like this grey form here, you're going to be able to get regular updates about our podcast that we do on a Thursday and the news that we do on a Monday. And if you feel like this blue one, I'm going to send you deal alerts. They're totally plain text. You read them in about half a minute. Emails, there's just no fluff. It just tells you there's 20% off such and such. Go get it now. It runs out on the 3rd, whatever. And then there's the ways to subscribe to the podcast. Join our Facebook group. Probably you have already, and various things. The other thing to mention is that we've got a webinar coming up at the moment with, we've got Andre Gagnon from Project Toddle. We'll get onto that in a moment. And let's get stuck into what we're supposed to be doing here today. If you go to this button here, Archives, and then click News Archive, you'll get to this, the little, the archive of all the news posts. It's always the top left one that we're going to be discussing, and in this case, it's number 78. Which looks a little bit like this. So let's put us back on the screen if we can. Let's have a look, see if that's worked. Yeah, very good. So I'm just going to start talking about the news posts. And if you guys, if you feel like there's something you want to contribute, please just interrupt and let us know what your thoughts are. The first one, we always block them into different categories, and the first one is WordPress core. And there's actually, I like this. Mainly the WordPress updates are a little bit kind of, sometimes I feel that it's a struggle to get into them, whether they're interesting enough or not. But I actually think there's something useful in this one. Sarah Gooding writes on the WP Tavern about this new typewriter mode, which has come to Gutenberg, and hadn't really kind of occurred to me that this was a thing that anybody would desire. So the idea being that in the olden days when you put paper in a typewriter, you would type and the paper would move up because the little hammers that got the letters on, they can't move. They just go forwards and backwards. So the whole block of text moves up in front of your eyes. Well, they're going to put this into Gutenberg. In fact, they have. And so if you reach the bottom of the viewport, it leaves about an inch gap. So there's always white space at the bottom. And every time you click return, or you get to the end of a line and move up, all the text above it, excuse me, I'm whacking my mic, moves up. And there's a video on the page that if you go to the show notes, you can see the link. There's a video on there that you can see. Maybe if I show you that, there we go. It's this little video here. And you can see as they sort of get to the bottom of the text, as they get to the bottom down here, the whole thing just moves up. And I think that's dead cool. The other thing that they've got is they're now going to have the ability to create kind of circles and lozenges. So if you've got an image that you want to upload, you can do like a crop around the edges. As you can see from the screen, you can do like a circle one. If you upload a rectangular image instead of a square one, you can do that as well. And then they've added this, which I think is another cool step. This is the idea that if you're confused about what any of the blocks do, let's say for example you're absolutely new to WordPress and you don't know what a paragraph is, they've now going to add this contextual help box to the right hand side, including the title and a few basic paragraphs of text about what it does. So that's kind of the long and the short of this article. I just think it's quite nice, really. Nice little updates, just taking it to the next level. Any thoughts on that, gents?
I agree. First of all, I think it's like it's just a few nice usability kind of features. Yeah, nothing really major to comment on. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good process to go to. Yep. Especially when the goal is that people will use that as the main tool to build pages and to create content.
Yeah, I mean, all it's doing really. Sorry, Shane. I'd like you to.
No,
you go first, please.
I think the help panel is pretty cool. So we have a few of our clients using Gutenberg, and we've had to create little videos to teach them how to use it. I think the little help guide next to those content blocks will be pretty helpful. It might save me some work.
Yeah. Right. I was wondering actually what the chances are in the future of somebody putting the capability to put videos in there might be. You know, you could put your own little bespoke video.
That would be cool.
Yeah, just like a little YouTube video or something where you could explain, you know, in a kind of personal way, maybe even with some branding. Yeah. I mean, especially if you've got like a great big project that you're working on, you know, where that is worth the effort. You know, you've built a custom block using whatever technique you're going to do, and you can drop a little video in and say, okay, this is what the real estate block does, or whatever it might be. That nice. See it being a nice feature going forwards. Anyway, as always, it crawls forwards at like a sedate pace, but nice little feature improvements. And I'm guessing that if you are like a really fast typist and you know you're a serious content creator writing long form content, the old typewriter thing will be really nice. Okay, let's go back to the post here and have a look. The next one we've got is under the banner of community. We've got 4 little posts here. 2 are actually from Elementor, and although they're separated by 2 in the middle, we'll maybe do those both at the same time. So the first one is this one. And this is just a nice little piece from the Elementor guys. I mean, really, the credentials from these guys are getting stronger and stronger by the week, aren't they? 3 million websites, enormous, like pretty much unrivaled growth, I would say, in the WordPress space over the last couple of years. Pretty phenomenal. And so they've set themselves out the task this week of putting together a piece where each of the, I think it's 15 contributors. Yeah, there we go, 15 experts. They talk about what it is that they did to sort of to grow their business, what marketing strategy they did. And they asked everybody 2 simple questions. What was the number 1 factor growth for your business? And then number 2, and I kept saying this wrong when I was recording it, what was the biggest growth challenge? What lessons did overcoming it teach you? And I just read it all, and I just thought it was a really interesting little piece. Some of the comments at the bottom were very complimentary, some not so. They thought it was, you know, there wasn't quite as much content as I gained from it. And I don't know if you want to comment on that, or indeed, maybe I could ask Vito or Shane if they could answer the question for themselves. What was the number 1 factor of growth for your business? Yeah, same questions, number 1.
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Okay, Shane.
No, you take that one first.
I like it. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, go for it. So, Vito,
I
question to you.
actually, when I saw this article, I love this kind of stuff, these roundups of
Yeah,
just tapping into other people's minds and seeing what they've done and how I can learn from it. So I more than what's happening on the page itself, I recommend people to download the full report because there's a lot more insight in there rather than what is shown here.
Yeah.
And okay, so what are the two questions? What's the number one factor?
So the first one, yeah, what is the number one factor of growth for your business?
So I would say that it was first of all being my own audience. I think that was a huge understanding for me because on almost every business that I've done before that, I tried to jump into a community or just talk at the community rather than being part of it. And I think that just being my own target audience and knowing the pains that the clients are going through really helped me create my messaging in a way that resonated in a lot better way.
Right.
And the second thing is omnipresence, which I kind of love this term of how you just want to be everywhere all the time. So wherever people kind of look around, that's where you should be. So you're basically cornering the niche from every different angle, using pixels as well, paid ads and organic sources. That really helped get the plugin in the field, straight out of the gate.
You were a masterclass in energy when I saw you at both WordCamp London and WordCamp Europe. I think we could all honestly. I was thinking to myself the other day, if I launched a product, I want you to come with me to some live events to sort of plug it for me because I know that I'll just sit in the corner and dribble. I was thinking I'll just get Vito to do it.
Well, it's just a matter of I know that what we did is awesome, so I just want to share this with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that just getting this passion for your business is critical if you want to move things forward, especially if you want to move things forward fast, rather than it looking like work, because I work a lot more than most people that I know, but I don't feel that I don't feel tired or I don't feel like burdened by it. I enjoy it because there is a lot of passion that is involved.
Yeah. Do you want to answer that question, Shane, or would you rather gloss over it and go?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go for it.
I think I also downloaded this PDF and I enjoyed going through it. The very first guy mentioned focus, which is something that I personally struggle with, being a little bit having a bit of an attention deficit. But I must say, having worked out things like an ideal client profile or a customer avatar, whatever you like to call it, that helped a lot. Just to define who do I want to work with and what kind of work do I want to do, and then to be able to target those people rather than just like I'll take anyone that will pay me money
in all directions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a more targeted approach rather than that shotgun, like just send out the spray, So that was huge. And then recently, what I've done is taken on a business partner, nice. Which it can go either way, I guess. And a lot of people are not keen to do that. But for me, what worked out really well, or is working well, is that I'm able to focus more on my strengths. And there's some things that I'm not very good at, which I was trying to constantly get better at, which was taking my focus away from where my strengths are. And so being able to focus where I'm strong and let somebody else focus on some of the other things, that's been a massive help in growing for me.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. I think for me, the biggest thing that's grown my business over the years is word of mouth, actually. Just encouraging people when I've successfully built something, asking them to refer to their colleagues, friends, family, whatever, dog, cat, I don't care. I'll work for any animal. And Yeah, and that's been really effective for me. So it was quite interesting that, all these people have got very grand ways of doing things and reaching the entire world, whereas my business is much more focused on kind of where I live and people that I might bump into on the street. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
There's a nice
I think
piece.
that this is a great approach for exactly what you're saying, like Nathan. If you want to do like something like a freelance business and focus around the local community, then you don't need more than word of mouth. Just do good work and people will come.
Yeah.
But the point I think with these guys, and especially considering the people that they interviewed, it's about accelerated growth.
Oh, yeah.
How can I go beyond the local and immediate kind of response and create a system that will bring people as I flick the switch, rather than just sit and wait for the good reputation to do its course.
It's a nice piece.
But it doesn't replace good reputation. That's for sure.
Yeah. It is a nice piece. I just picked it out because I think that not only have the CEO of Elementor stuck his own neck out, but there's a whole bunch of people from all sorts of different and very, very famous businesses like Buffer. They've got the guys from HubSpot, and they've got Rand Fishkin from Moz, and I think these people really know what they're talking about. So go download the big copy. But lovely. I just really enjoyed that article. So congratulations to the Elementor guys for putting together a nice blog piece. The other bit that they did, which I'll skip to now, which is actually the fourth piece in the article. Let me just show that on the screen. So it's this one down here. It's the fourth one. We've missed these two out. We'll come back to these. Was this piece, and it was all. I just thought this was really an interesting pitch. So the idea here is that they're trying to tempt people to go from Wix over to WordPress. Now, for WordPress, read Elementor, really. Because this guide is a way to do that through Elementor. And I can't really remember the last time I saw this pitch. We constantly hear about the danger from, the platforms like Squarespace and Weebly and Wix and so on. And to be honest, they are very, very good platforms, no doubt about it. But haven't really heard many people talking about doing it this way, and certainly not putting forward an article where they kind of elucidate exactly what it is that you need to do. But that's what this article does. It goes on to explain some of the reasons, the pros and the cons of why you might want to use one over the other. There's a nice little bullet pointed list here, with obviously WordPress having more bullet points, or at least a far greater number of words. And then it goes on to explain how you could actually achieve this doing a straight swap from Elementor over to from Wix over to Elementor, including like how the modules match up, what kind of things what things will be easy to achieve, and so on. So yeah, I like it. Nice idea. I actually personally don't have any clients that have come to me that have said, actually, we've got a Wix website, but we've decided to go to WordPress. But I'm sure that must happen more or less on a daily basis. So nice article.
For sure. This is something that we did multiple times. Moving from all kinds of different other CMSs into WordPress. Mostly, I think it's a matter of the place where the business is, because when you first start something, I think that actually going with Wix or with Squarespace or something like that, if you don't have the skills of building your own WordPress website, I think that's a better choice rather than starting to work with a professional and doing all of this kind of stuff, because it just makes things a lot slower. And the website at the very, very early stage is more of it's just something that you need to get out of the way rather than focusing 100%. It depends on the business, of course, but in most cases, when it comes to small businesses, then once you experience how it is having a website with Wix, with Squarespace, with whatever the CMS Weebly or whatever, that's when and your business gets to the point where you need more power from your from your website, and you start looking at it as a proper marketing tool. That's when you gotta move out of these tools, because they just don't have the flexibility that the business needs at that level.
Sounded like you wanted to interrupt there, Shane. Have you got anything you want to add, or?
I think this article is really clever from an SEO point of view. So they're in Wix, which is like, have you ever watched a YouTube video and not seen a Wix ad?
Because that's a great point.
It seems like every YouTube video that I watch has a Wix ad at the start, So Wix are spending a lot of money on advertising, and I think here Elementor is leveraging the money that they've spent on advertising. And I think probably Wix versus WordPress is quite a high volume search topic. So
yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it from that point
Yeah.
of view, but
I
that's
think
true.
that
Yeah.
like this is something that is being emphasized a lot in the plugin community recently. Just having a really clear content marketing strategy, and I think that I think Kinsta has just like ruled the world with this thing because they just went after all of the different WordPress bugs and all of the kind of like comparison. They built their entire blog based on keywords, but to a place where they become the authority and the source for knowledge, like WP Beginner has been, and I think that Elementor was looking into that a little bit, and and we can see a bunch of stuff that are happening on their blog recently that is just covering the general questions, the big questions that we all came across when we started working in this space. And they're just gathering this content within their blog so that they become the authority. Next year, they will get the traffic.
Yeah. Good point. I hadn't really thought about it from that point of view, but that's nice. Okay, let's head back over to the article here. What have we got? So the next one that's coming up is actually the next two kind of cover the same thing really, but from different angles. So the first one was an article over on WP Mayor, and it's all about why WordPress is such a great platform for non-profits. But it links in very nicely with an article that WPMU Dev put out this week, which is entitled "Is WordPress an Actual Content Management System?" So dealing with them in the order that I mentioned them. Let's get rid of these subscribe boxes. WP Mayor are obviously sort of taking the position that if you're approached by a non-profit client, how are you going to justify the use of WordPress over something else? And it's the same sort of article that you've read before. It touches on the same points. It's free. You can see them just sort of scrolling past as the headlines, if you like. It's portable, lasts longer. WordPress helps avoid technology changes. It's upgraded all the time, and it's SEO friendly, sort of out the box. And then the WPMU Dev one tackles a slightly similar article. Now, I've faced this question so many times, not only from clients, but like friends who kind of know a little bit about WordPress seem to have this impression that it really isn't a CMS. It's just a blogging platform. And literally, I must have answered this question a dozen times in the last year. Is it a CMS? And so this article, for once and for all, I think anyway, kind of outlines what is a CMS, what are the sort of defining features of it, and therefore does WordPress fit into that category. They made a nice little video at the top here which summarizes the whole article, but you know what I'm going to say. It basically is. It has been for years. Not only is it like, look at it, I mean, it's just off the scale here, it's all out on its own. Look, Drupal sort of has this this dot slightly higher here, but this is to do with high and low volume traffic. Really, you're looking at the distance across the x-axis, and WordPress stands all by itself in terms of the market share. 61.2% of all content management system websites are built on WordPress. It's absolutely staggering. 42 million downloads. It's just gone up actually. 42 million downloads. And so if you've ever come across a client and they've kind of hit you with this, but it's not going to do what I want down the road, this I think is a great article for kind of rebutting that and saying,
share that.
Yeah, exactly. So
there was an interesting practice that we used to do when we were reaching out to customers after the proposal, just sending out a few emails that just redirect them to these kind of articles.
Yep.
So it's not even on our website. It's just positioning as a place that we know what we're talking about, and we're kind of like immersed in the knowledge,
Yep.
So this definitely seems like one of these ones that I would include in the follow-up sequence for sure.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, it's nothing. There's no news in there for you and I. This is just one of those. Yeah. It's like an opinion piece, which is perfect. But exactly for putting in front of the client who doesn't really know and who, for some reason, they've had their ear bent. Oh no, don't go with WordPress. It's just not built for this kind of high-level stuff. It's not built for multiple pieces of content and so on. Yeah, those days. Long time ago, I'm afraid to say. Anything to add to that, Shane, or should we crack on?
Let's let's keep going.
Okay, let's do it. Right, in which case we've done the little community bit. Let's go for plugins and themes. I'm going to ask Vito to plug his ears for a moment because we're going to be talking very briefly about a rival to WP Feedback. WP Feedback has, you know what it does, and Project Huddle does a sort of similar kind of thing, and they've got a 40% off code at the moment. You can get a lifetime deal for this number. And actually, if you were to go over to this page, let me open that in a new tab, webinars, we have a webinar with Andre Gagnon coming up on Thursday, the 12th of September, 2 p.m. UK time, in which he's going to show you all of the new stuff that he's added into Project Huddle and how to use it if you've never seen it before. So yeah, updated pricing and a webinar with Andre the developer. So right, let's move on in that case, and we'll talk instead about Facet WP. They've released version 3.4.1. I did have an article linked somewhere which was far better than this, but the change, it's funny, they sent out an email. I don't know when the last time this happened was. Normally when I get emails from services like this, it always has a web version, but in their wisdom, the guys at Facet WP don't have the web version, and the email was so much better than this changelog. You know, they actually wrote sentences and included screenshots and stuff.
Oh, right.
So it was a bit of a shame. So I'm kind of stuck on this. Actually, let me see if I can find it. I think I put it in an Evernote somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if I can make that appear. Can I drag this over here? Possibly. Yeah, there we go. There you go. Look, I made it into an Evernote. There we go. Right, so they've got this. They've basically spent a bit of time updating the admin UI. If you've ever used faceted search to sort of drill down within the content type, let's say you've got cars or something like that, and you want to be able to have various fields within the custom post type and say, okay, I only let the front end user of the website only see Fords or only see ones that are priced between this and this. Well, that's what Facet WP does essentially. And so I thought it was a great product. I've used it multiple times, but I did feel the UI was a bit clunky, a bit difficult to use, and the documentation wasn't very good. I had to write to the developers a few times rather than find the things in the documentation, and they've taken this. I mean, it wasn't me that suggested this, but they've taken this to heart, and they've made the UI a lot nicer to look at. They've gone back to the start and completely rewritten their documentation. And I think this is quite nice. This is a new sort of feature. They've added in like a mobile flyout, which I think is really cool. So the idea being that on a mobile device, let's say, oh, perfect, cars again, there we go. You can see how it would work. You know, you want to click on Alfa Romeos, this menu flies out from the side, and you can dismiss it with a tap of a button. They've also got integrations now with Elementor. I don't know how much of this is brand new, but there's Elementor, ACF support for ACF fields, which is something that I've used all the time. ACF and Facet WP work really well together. And so that's it. That is that particular news article. Anybody?
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, well, like there's a few tools that are doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
At the moment, this seems like they're looking more into the UI elements of it, while others are not so much worried about that. It's more about like a development side tool. So I think that's a good approach. You know, everything, especially as the community becomes more and more less dev oriented, I would say.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it did feel a little bit like their core audience was developers, but it kind of feels like WordPress is there's an awful lot of people who could make use of a plugin like this who aren't developers, who are just, like trying to build their own site.
Yeah.
And I think that in the past, the way that they had their plugin set up, it was a little bit tricky. There was a variety of ways to, certainly in Beaver Builder, going back many years, you had to fiddle with the theme files and so on and so forth. So it's great. I think it's going in the right direction. And the more time that people spend on making things, easy to use, the better, really. But I can highly recommend it. It's really good plugin. Works really well. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is this just took my breath away actually a little bit. WP Newsify No thanks, not just yet. There we go. Look at all these cookie and pop-ups happening all over the place. I didn't really realize that there were as many different rival kind of block solutions for Gutenberg as there are
Already.
Yeah, I mean, I knew of the big ones that have somehow managed to get themselves into the press a lot, but just have a look at this list. Like Ultimate Add-ons for Gutenberg, Ultimate Blocks, Otter Blocks, never heard of that one, so that's a new one on me. I'll be checking that one out. Atomic Blocks I heard of, and then it all went quiet. Stackable Gutenberg Blocks, not heard of that one. Advanced Gutenberg, nope. Co-blocks, yes, I'd heard of that one. Gutenberg Maps, Google Maps Gutenberg block, no. Ghost Kit, nope, not heard of that one. And I don't even know how to say that one. Quibbly, Quibbly, Qubely, Quibbly.
I guess it's Qubely.
Oh, you see, clever people that come on this show that can do things that I can't, like read. Qubely sounds about right. It just made me feel like, give it time. This whole Gutenberg thing is going to be super useful, especially if you pick the right one of these and it matures and it goes in the right direction. Over to you.
I think that something that would be interesting for some of the bigger page builders now is to create that integration straight away instead of waiting for other people to start copying or duplicating blocks that they have within their UI elements onto Gutenberg. So I'm kind of surprised that none of the big players are in here, but that, I guess, is one of the challenges of progress, because once you build yourself as a company, it's really hard to pivot to the smaller, to the newest markets, and Gutenberg is definitely a new market. So maybe in a couple of years we'll see a complete transformation in what we perceived as the biggest visual builders based on this.
Yeah, I mean, some of these capabilities that these blocks can achieve are really sophisticated. And actually, I was looking for a basic Gutenberg blog post on WP Builds, which is actually coming out this week. I was just looking at the capabilities, because for the first time ever, I wanted to put a button in the actual, because it's normally just text and links, and that's all it is, and I've never needed anything else. So for the first time ever, I needed in Gutenberg a button, and obviously there's a button block, but it just struck me as, oh my good Lord, how limited it is. It's like aligned left. It's only as big as the text that you put within it. You can fiddle with the corners, but that's about it. You can't float it in any particular direction. You can't. Well, essentially, it's just it's a very, very basic little block. And then I suddenly got thinking, wow, okay, I now feel that I see the need for these blocks creeping in, because I've kind of started to write my content on Gutenberg. And so these things will start to be something that I'm going to look at more seriously in the future. So, anything to add on that, Shane?
So we're trying to use Gutenberg more. At the moment, we're only using it and getting our clients to use it for blog posts and not to build pages. But I think as well as these grow and as people start using them, I see like the Brainstorm Force guys who build Astra. They've done ultimate add-ons for Gutenberg, and with their Astra themes, you get these pre-built websites that you can use as like a starter template or whatever. And they actually have templates. I think it's like 20 of them that are built completely using Gutenberg, so without Elementor or Beaver Builder or some other page builder.
Right.
So that's definitely the way things are moving, and they're jumping on like quite early, which I think, like Vito said, is quite a clever thing to do. And again, if I was Elementor, I'd be looking strongly at integrating somehow, just to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm just looking actually and sharing on the screen the one that you mentioned, Ultimate Add-ons for Gutenberg. Very strong ratings. It's got 208 stars, and then a combination of all the other stars are only 10. So it's really, a ratio of
those guys do Ultimate Add-ons for Elementor and Ultimate Add-ons for Beaver Builder, which are both really good add-on plugins.
Yeah. I wonder if it's free or if there's a paid update. I haven't really looked into that, but my guess is obviously if it's on the repo, it's free. But I don't know if there's a sort of premium edition of that. But anyway, the point being, if you found like me, you've sort of been fiddling with Gutenberg, and suddenly you're thinking, okay, let's expand the parameters a little bit. And I don't want to build it myself. I just want to go out and find a free or maybe modestly priced solution. This is WP Newsify's article is really good because it just lists them all. And you can just click on the links, go and explore them, see if any of it kind of makes sense to you. Okay, great. That's nice. Now, the next 4 bits are all about security. And really, I'm just going to very light touch on this. There's an article over here, blog.wpsec.com, all about XML-RPC. I can never say that right. And, oh, crikey, there we go. Get rid of these pop-ups that come straight up. And it's all about, you've heard of this before. If you're new to WordPress, you've probably seen it in the settings somewhere. You've probably heard people say, no, you want to switch that off. And it's switched on by default. Get it switched off. But there's a use case for it, especially if you're using things like the Android app or the iOS app or Jetpack, things like that. But this article just goes into enormous detail about what it is, what its purpose is. And so it came out this week, so I thought that was useful mentioning. The other ones are WordFence have an article this week all about a whole suite of problems with redirecting people to malicious sites, Nick Dark plugins, and Simple 301 redirects add-on bulk uploader. These are the ones that you need to watch out for. So if you've heard of those, if you've got any of those installed on any sites, maybe go and check that article out. And then
I actually saw someone that was someone posted on, it's not even a niche website that was on. I think it was like entrepreneur.com or something like that, about 60 million WordPress installations being compromised based on the WordFence recent kind of thing. I don't know if it's just trying to create a fear,
Wow.
but there was a list of plugins that needs to be taken care of. And they even emphasized one interesting point about the majority of the plugins on the repo. I don't know if that's true. That's what I read there. The majority of the plugins weren't updated since 2018.
There's a nice warning now, isn't there, that comes in. I can't remember where it comes in. I'm thinking of main WP. In my main WP installation, it tells me if something's been, I think it's 6 months. By default, it says, this plugin hasn't been touched. And so it then calls it something like out of date or something. And it basically flags it and says, maybe you want to go and look at this because this plugin hasn't been touched for a while, which doesn't look good. And I think that's in main WP. I'm pretty sure it is.
What's going to happen with all of that? Because over the past 15 years, like we have 70,000 plugins on there. But if most of them are abandoned, what's the value moving forward, especially, with security updates, of course, but as well as the core changes completely.
There is a flag on the repo, isn't there? There is something in the repo, and I can't remember where it's positioned, which it indicates the same kind of thing. And I think... Yeah,
it tells you that it wasn't updated in the last 3 years or something like that.
Yeah. I suppose that's the way to go in the future, isn't it? Is just to, put great big red warnings saying this one hasn't been updated for a long time. It requires a PHP version which nobody should be touching, and so on and so forth. I don't know what you do. It's just the legacy of open source software, isn't it? It's not being developed. If you're using it, try and find an alternative, uninstall, delete. That's why we pay a premium, isn't it? That's why people are going to pay you, Vito, for upgrades. Once they've bought it, they just want to make sure that the security vulnerabilities that will occur to most plugins at some point are going to be taken care of. There's a bottom sitting on a seat ready to start typing away and fix it the moment it's discovered. I'm not suggesting that the bottom is actually doing the typing. That would be ridiculous. Of course, it's the fingers that do the typing. Anyway, on that acerbic note, I'm going to move on to the next piece. One couple of other bits. Just briefly introduce them to you. This is a Kinster post all about. My goodness, this is long. Protect your WordPress website. Every method. Let me just scroll and then scroll and just keep scrolling. Wow, so many ways of protecting your WordPress website. I mean, every conceivable method. If you've thought about security, if you want to lock something down, especially if it's in development and you don't want anybody seeing it and so on and so forth, then go and check that article out. And then this one over on WP Engine, very brief this one, but how to stop a DDoS, a distributed denial of service attack. And the answer is basically get yourself something like a CDN, like Cloudflare or something. But a few tips over there. But that's all I got for security. David and I introduced a podcast to the world on Thursday called Only Doing What You're Good At. The idea here was we were talking through the idea of what if what if this job was boiled down to the things that you've actually got to do. And we came up with this little list here. So, you're a branding expert, a communicator, a copywriter, an SEO expert, a photographer, a back-end developer, a front-end developer, JavaScript, React, and so on and so forth. Should we, as an industry, be moving to the point where we are only doing one or two things and trying to farm out the rest of it to people who are equally good at the different things? Find out by listening. As always, caveat applies. David and I really never know particularly what we're talking about. And we mentioned, did we mention at the top? No, we didn't. I'm on a call with Peacher, which is in a couple of days. Wednesday, the 4th of September. We're going to have a live UI UX call. We did one of these, a bit like what we're doing now. It was live. But Peacher looked at some websites and the feedback was really positive. She was great. She just introduced all sorts of little subtle things that I personally would have never have spotted. And the comments that were coming through were really, really positive. So come and join us for that. Go here, wpbuilds.com/UI, and fill out this form if you want to submit your site. And failing that, just show up at 2 p.m. in the Facebook group. And there you go. Great. And then the last few are all nothing to do with WordPress. I'm not even going to mention microblog and Tumblr because it's a bit boring. Danny Sullivan responds.
It's part of WordPress, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but that's not what this is about. It's much more niche than that. But yes, Tumblr is part of the Automatic family, not necessarily part of WordPress, but. And I'm also going to miss out that the only one I really want to talk about is two in here that I want to talk about. Three, I completely lied. The first one is that this is cool. Chrome 76 is going to be lazy loading images by default. So Sarah Gooding tells us on WP Tavern. So up until now, you've got to introduce some sort of code into your website. You might do it with a plugin like Smush or Auto Optimize or something like that. But now Chrome's going to take that work for you and speed up your sites automatically. I don't know what the technology is that they're going to use, but dead cool, really cool. Anything to say on that?
I was just laughing from Leo's message on the chat over there, but and I wasn't paying attention to you at all. So sorry.
I expect Nathan to say less than 20 words over to. No, I'm good at talking, Leo. I'm going to talk and talk and talk. No, I just think this is a nice development. It's the kind of thing that could be done in the browser. Why not do it in the browser? Stop having to do all these third-party JavaScript hacks to make it work. And although it works,
I actually think that this is a great idea, and Chrome should do a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Especially as things become really heavy. The browser is becoming like a proper system to have, where it should be like just a gateway to kind of to the internet. But it's becoming more and more and heavier. And I don't know if it's my computer, but even since the last update, I've been crashing Chrome on a daily basis, which is kind of annoying. Jerome has promised to fix this for me a few times already. He's looking at me now.
I am desperate. I am desperate for the day when the browser, whether that's Chrome or Firefox or whatever your flavor is, where it is the only thing that I have. AKA like a Chromebook, but it wouldn't need to be a Chromebook. It could be a Firefox book or whatever. I really want that day to come. I've managed to shift a lot of like image creation into the online space, into SaaS apps, fairly basic image editing programs, but still, you can't rival the likes of Photoshop and so on. But the things that keep me locked down to a computer is images and video and audio, and those three things just simply, there's no replacement for the grunt that goes on and the capability of the apps that I have on my Mac or PC or whatever it might be. And but I am longing for that day. I think give it a decade, maybe it'll be less than that. And that would be great for me. Just whip open, I just love the idea of that one broke, okay, I've bought a new one, and I open it up and type in my password, and within 25 seconds, it's exactly the same machine as it was.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. I know that Eric Ham, the guy from Cobalt Apps, he's got a plugin called Instant IDE, which I don't use. I've got an IDE on my Mac, but you can stick this in the root of your website's file structure, and it takes over that job. That's another one which could go by the wayside because it looks as fully featured as my Mac one, to be honest. So there we go. Right, that's that one. The next one, penultimate. Ooh, crikey. Penultimate one is this. Now, here we go. 4 guests on the show today. Well, there were supposed to be 4. There was going to be me, Tom Carlos, Shane and Vito, and 4 guests basically every week. Every single one of them has been a man, has been male. And I sprayed out emails to anybody that I could think of who would like to come on. But it does occur to me, because of this article, the PHP Central Europe conference cancelled due to lack of speaker engagement. So this is a big event. The PHP Europe conference has been like mothballed. They've basically stopped doing it this year because there's not a lady speaker in sight. And so that got me thinking, along with comments made by Peacher to me off the record, that it would be nice if ladies watching this decided to come on to this. And I know that I've got Anshan LaRue coming on. She was watching this earlier, nice. So I'm glad that she's doing it. But if we have any members of this community that are female and would like to come on, please get in touch. WP
what about
Build
Peacher?
Yeah, I will
as well.
twist. Yeah, I will twist her arm for sure. But yeah,
There are many ladies though. That's true.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, you went to WordCamp Europe, and I spoke to Josepha Hayden, who's the executive director of the WordPress project, and she was really pleased with the way it's going. I think something like, I can't remember the numbers, but it was like 30% of attendees. Maybe It wasn't as high as that. I'm maybe over-egging it. But nevertheless, it's going in the right direction. But apparently not on WP Build. So I want to correct that in line with this article. So please, maybe I should get Sarah Gooding on. Ask Sarah to come on, the person who wrote.
Awesome. That's a good idea. That's
wrote
a really interesting
this
idea.
article. Yeah, that would be nice. Anyway, there you go. There is my plea. Anybody want to say anything about that conference or diversity in general, or shall we move on to the last one?
Well, I think that my wife had just been to this conference here in London, which was like Women in Tech, and after that she was asked to write an article about this, for where she works. She works in a startup company as well, and she kind of talked about how, from the women point of view, how essential it is that they will kind of look into these kind of things more and more. But on the other hand, and she's a recruiter for, I think I'm going to dig myself a hole by saying what she said right now.
Okay, backpedal quickly. Backpedal.
She basically said, what are you talking about? Just go and do it instead of talking about it.
Yeah.
And I invite everyone to do the same thing. I think that any one of us can look at their lack of connection to a community and focus on that, rather than think about what I can contribute to that community and just push myself to do more of that thing. So we can say that I've been in the UK for 6 years. I'm almost a tourist in this country, right? But that doesn't stop me in speaking English, my broken English, to the world and doing whatever is needed to get to raise my profile in the community, if you will. And I think that this is something that this is what kind of she emphasized in a more subtle way, because she can allow herself to be a little more blunt about the subject. But that's the point. Basically, just do it instead of talking about how not good it is. Just do it.
Yeah.
And like Nathan is doing, is inviting people over to do this. I don't think that anyone is stopping anyone from applying to speak at PHP conferences or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It just kind of made me feel that I wondered if the sort of the messaging that I put out had been exclusively towards, if my email list is just full of males that I invited on. And then I looked back and I thought, no, not necessarily the case. But I just think that'd be a nice thing to correct. It would be nice to get a fuller picture of what's going on in the WordPress.
But also, when you look at, if you're looking at it from a proper audience point of view, and we just built I think that Shane said at the beginning, creating your client avatar and understanding who you're focusing on. So we did the opposite approach. We started by approaching everyone. And then we checked who the message resonates with and which kind of people, both on genders, both also on age, also on locations, have kind of come on board, so that we can target them in a more targeted way, basically. And we found that it's 89% of users to our plugin are male.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not something that, obviously, it's not something that we pushed towards, and it's just been happening over the past few months. But this is kind of a reflection of the industry, I would say, because even when I did the survey early on, that was pretty much the ratio. So that's just an interesting thing to remember, that it is a male-dominated industry at this point. I don't think if it's good or bad, that doesn't really matter in my mind. But that's kind of where things are. So I don't know why to cancel an event because of that, if no one wants to speak from the opposite sex.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting position. Shane, you got anything to add on that?
I'm actually part of the organizing team for the WordCamp here in Johannesburg with Anshin, who you mentioned is going to be on there. And we kind of had to have a discussion about this as well, in trying to ensure that the speaker lineup that we have at WordCamp has some diversity in place. And being in South Africa, diversity takes on an even more nuanced and maybe difficult sort of look than it might in other places, because we have such historical racial issues and stuff as well, so diversity for us is going to be even on a bigger scale. So we've had to deal with some of those things, but kind of like what Vito just mentioned, in a lot of industries, sort of people gravitate towards certain kinds of things, I suppose I don't want to get too political or whatever.
It's easy to put your foot in it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But from what I understand, looking at even countries in Scandinavia, where it's very egalitarian, people will just naturally gravitate towards certain kinds of jobs, and so it could be a result of that. But that's not to say we shouldn't try.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I have to say.
So I'm just going to make that call again. So, this has been through, I don't know how it's ended up that way. In the same way that Vito's plugin has got an 89% user base of males, the entire panel so far of this news thing has been men. Every time it's all men. And so we've got Anshin coming on. If you know of anybody, just let them know. Let them reach out to me. We'll try and adjust that to make it more representative of the world that we live in. And I don't know if that's my mistake or what, but I will try to correct it. And I'm doing it now. So there we go. Cool. Right. Let's do the last one, the very, very last one, which is to say that Ooh, crikey, more pop-ups. This is on Search Engine Journal. I think this is going to really be fascinating for marketers. I didn't even know that this didn't exist, but apparently Facebook are rolling out automated lead generation in their Messenger platform. Now, I use Messenger an awful lot. But this is the sort of way it'll look in the future. So you kind of you click send message on like an ad or something like that, and then it'll take you through the sort of whole automated process of here's some questions, give us your responses, and so on. And it populates automatic things, and then from there you can then put them into your autoresponder, your CRM of choice, what have you. I didn't really know that didn't exist, and so I just thought that would be something worthy of mentioning. I can't see myself using it, but I'm sure that for the internet marketers out there, this would be quite useful.
So this was actually a very, very common tool for marketers for a long time, like basically creating chatbots, but it was done through a third-party tool.
Yeah.
So now Facebook has built it into the core. That's the main difference.
Okay.
So that's why it felt like you knew this before, because pretty much everyone that wanted to do it is already doing it.
Okay.
But now they just killed a bunch of companies by including it into their own body.
Yeah, and I guess by doing that they get more of the important data about what people are doing themselves rather than it happening off-site, which is their mantra. I listened to a fabulous podcast this week, which I would urge anybody to listen to. It's by a guy called Sam Harris, and I can't actually remember the name of the actual podcast episode, but it was from several months ago, and it was about exactly this conundrum. We've heard it a billion times before that you are the product, and the advertisers are the customers. So it's quite the opposite way around. So let me just say that again: you are the product, and the advertisers are the customers. And I'd heard that 1,000 times before, but I'd never heard it explained so clearly and carefully as in this podcast. So go to samharris.org and listen to his podcast. I'd love listening to him speak. He just seems like an eminently clever bloke. That's it. That's all I've got. Now, last week, over the last few weeks, we've been doing this sort of finishing off thing with anything you want to say. What book you're reading? What film have you seen lately? What are you doing this week? And I'll go for Shane. What's going on? What do you want to tell us?
I'm busy reading. Well, I'm not reading. I listen to books. So I'm listening to a book called Radical Candor, and I'm probably about halfway. But I must say it's really excellent. It kind of goes through the sort of the power and of being really honest with people, like in the workplace. So instead of letting things go, to say we can improve on this and that, but it goes through techniques on how to do that. And so it's written by a lady, I can't remember her name, but she worked at Google and then at Twitter, I believe, and now she runs her own company. But it's just, I think if you have a team and you manage a team, it's invaluable. The information's excellent, so I highly recommend that.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Radical Candor. I'm sure that if you Google that, especially if you add book at the end, that's cool. Yeah, we're all guilty of that, aren't we? I mean, I'm a freelancer, so I kind of work here all by myself, but dealing with clients, I'm sure it'd be the same thing. Sometimes I just want to be honest, and I don't know how to do it. Vito, what about you?
I'm always reading stuff. Right now I have this book that I've been working on. It's called Predictably Irrational by Dana Rielly. Really, really interesting kind of read that I read years ago, and now I'm reading it again. I just bought a new version of it, and it was like just completely different outlook on it when I was reading it right now. The idea is basically saying that whatever we're doing, it's out of our own control, being manipulated all the time by different aspects of our personality and of the way that we kind of grew up and our culture. And that's what drives us into action rather than what we think is actually driving us into action. This is part of my research. I'm doing like a really deep research into communications and how people act when it comes to talking between each other. Your book, Shane, is definitely interesting from that aspect as well.
Yeah.
Because I really kind of want to get to a point where I know what triggers people to take the actions without them needing to think about it. Mostly for to serve the clients, to serve our clients now with our communication tools, so that your clients would need to think about how to give you feedback to just happen naturally through that process. So that's I'm always trying to find these kind of gold nuggets out of this. And I'm a huge fan of courses. So I'm doing a really interesting course now by Funalytics. Have you heard of Funalytics?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So they have a really interesting way of framing how to grow from 0 to 200,000 per year, and how to grow from 200,000 to 7 figures per year. And he just framed it in a really interesting way of how there are different stages to everything. So you don't need to look at yourself. You got to be who you are at any given moment, basically, rather than appear to be bigger than who you are, because there are steps that you can't skip. And that's a really clarifying realization for me as I've gone back to building something from scratch.
Very nice. Thank you. That was great. What really interesting stuff there. 2 books, 2 recommendations. Love it. I'm going to be basically cycling on a bike this week, doing more of the biking, and also
audible in your ears.
Lots of that. The other thing is I'm a real keen listener to podcasts, so that would be one of my recommendations. Is going to just this Sam Harris. It's called Making Sense, that podcast, and it's very, very good. It's not related to business at all. It's about kind of philosophy, psychology, and things like that. And I'm reading novels at the minute. I've kind of got myself off business-orientated books, and I'm reading a Ken Follett novel all about the First World War, and it's brilliant, and I'm loving that. And okay, thank you very much for paying attention. Thanks for joining us this week. Thank you to Shane, and thank you to Vito. Really appreciate you. And I say this again every single blessed week. I really, really actually mean that. I am very sincere about the thank you that I'm giving you right now. It's not some sort of hollow nonsense. I appreciate it very much. So, and without further ado, I suppose we'll knock it on the head and say see you next week. Enjoy. Reach out to any of these guys. See you guys. Bye.